Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday and a Kenny and Renny show. I'm Sean Reynolds, of course, from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Kenny Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after. Now, I'm going to say it. They said in the broadcast, Kevin Sawyer, great broadcaster, Dan Robinson, they were chatting. They said no reason to hit the panic button, and I agree with that. Like, after all, although I think it's starting to think it's a take that's gonna, age poorly, and I don't have many of those. Go back to my track record on this show, but just a couple shows ago, after they beat the LA Kings, I said I was confident the Winnipeg Jets were going to finish first in the Central Division. That was a bold proclamation that didn't need to be made. Reckless on my part, I would say. Not necessarily time to hit the panic button, but I would say this, maybe the most concerned I've been for the Winnipeg Jets probably in about 2 or 3 years in this very moment here. Now, the Winnipeg Jets went to California last year, went through a streak where they lost 4 straight games. So it's not like this is uncharted territory. It feels different to me. Okay. And I'm going to get into why. And you know what? I'm going to hop into my, 2007 Toyota Yaris, wishing it's a 2027 RAV4, which I'm already signed up for and ready to go at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. And I'm going to do the opening drive here, the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive, and tell you why I'm so concerned. And this is it. And it seems pretty obvious here, but you're taking a look at the Anaheim Ducks. They're one of the younger teams in the league. They're definitely loaded with young stars. This is a game the Winnipeg Jets come in. They get the benefit of catching the Anaheim Ducks on the back end of a back-to-back. They should be the team that is running the show in this game. And it never happens. Like we talked about in the last show, what we've seen from the Jets this year are these flashes of that team that they were last year, where they'll go out, they'll grind, they'll control play. But last year, it just happened so much. And I talked a little bit about, them tilting the ice. And I look at it like a scale, right? Last year, the scale was so tilted in the Winnipeg Jets direction all the time because they were just constantly on top of the plate, doing the right things. And there was just always this feeling of inevitability that existed with the Winnipeg Jets, that they were probably going to win that game. Oh, you went down 3-1, 4-1. The Winnipeg Jets are probably going to come back and win that game. It just always felt like that because they would control the play and it would look like there was no other outcome. Eventually, they were going to break through. And I think through this 15-game stretch that we're looking at here now, it's clearly obvious that doesn't exist with the Winnipeg Jets anymore. The Philadelphia Flyers game earlier in the year is the one game I look at and I think, okay, that's the game that the Jets went in and they just ground and were on top of the team, and that team couldn't seem to figure it out. And, you only get to touch the puck when we say you get to touch the puck. And here's the deal, why I'm most concerned about it is the Jets play this game against a really young team. The last game they played against the San Jose Sharks, another really young team. And typically what you'd see from the Winnipeg Jets is they would check those teams into submission. And we're clearly not seeing that. I touched on it in the last podcast, that thing of the Winnipeg Jets stealing hope from other teams, just making them feel hopeless until the point that they just gave up and said, here, take the game, or started doing stupid things or opened up their risk profile or whatever it is that they did in those games that the Winnipeg Jets would then capitalize on and keep carrying forward. That's not happening. What's most concerning to me, and I'll get to the age thing in a little bit, is that it almost seems to be working in reverse. Like the Winnipeg Jets, to me, in the last couple of games, they don't look like that team that, what did we say they would do? Even if things aren't going their way, even if the scoreboard's in the other team's favor, the Winnipeg Jets, they just keep doing the right things over and over and over again. And sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you won't, but you're going to win more often than not when you just always keep doing the right things. That clearly was a game where the Winnipeg Jets stopped doing the right things. I didn't recognize that Winnipeg Jets team. Kind of didn't really recognize the Winnipeg Jets team that played against San Jose the other night. And what I don't recognize is the Winnipeg Jets kind of looked like they lost hope. it kind of looks like they're opening up and trying to do things that they typically wouldn't do. It looks like they're abandoning their structure and abandoning their system to try and get themselves back into games. And it's not even what we used to see from the Winnipeg Jets, the old kind of snake charmer kind of thing where they'd rather play easier hockey, right? That was something that, Rick Bonus's first year, the Jets kept going back to. He kept talking about their bad habits that they'd go back to. That's understandable. They were that team for so long that things got hard and they're like, let's just go snake charm our way back into this. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Here, it seems disorganized. It seems unlike anything I've really seen from the Winnipeg Jets before. But what is clear is the Winnipeg Jets, who have never truly got to their structure this season, you heard it from their head coach, said through about 10 games that had never happened. So a team that has never truly found its structure is now kind of abandoning its structure before it can get back to it. I thought that's what happened in this game. I thought that's something we really have not seen from the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think we saw it at all last year. I think we only saw it every once in a while the year before. I thought you saw it clearly, the year before that when they tailed off towards the end of the year. But to see a Winnipeg Jets team whose strength should be its maturity, maybe not leaning on that maturity and kind of getting into a position where rather than saying, guys, let's just get back to doing the right things, kind of just got really loose and all over the place. That's not something I recognize. That's not something that seemed to exist in the Jets of last year. It seems to be existing in the team this year, especially on this road trip where, I'm sorry, but the Jets were owned tonight by a team that was coming off of a back-to-back. And the most concerning thing about this, I would say, is we talked about the speed of this team. We talked about its ability to tilt the ice with that speed. We talked about the fact that the Jets lost their fastest player off their second line last year, their third line last year, their fourth line last year, second line Nick Ehlers, third line Mason Appleton, fourth line Rasmus Kupari. And losing that speed, what's it done to this team? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. It's made it so that they can't tilt the ice the way that they used to. And while that doesn't seem like maybe the biggest deal, what it means is now when the Winnipeg Jets are defending, it's more chances for things to break down. It's more chances to kind of to lose things a little bit. Most importantly, it's more opportunities to kind of lose hope in what you're doing or lose belief in what you're doing. The Jets, to me, tonight looked like a team that lost belief in their system, and that's trouble. And the most concerning thing of all is the past two games we're seeing, and who knows how long it'll last. Utah Mammoth started off the year. Everything was looking really good. Now, all of a sudden, they're coming back down to earth. Chicago is doing really great. We saw the Jets play them Jets style, and you saw that Chicago really couldn't hang with that. So there's still correcting to be done here with all these young teams who've shot up, and you got to maintain it. Let's see if they maintain it. I think a lot of them won't. But you got to think about this. The Jets have really, really doubled down. They're the oldest team in the league, right? They've locked down their core for years to come. They're about to lock down Adam Lowry for a little bit longer. Again, oldest team in the NHL. And they just played a couple young teams, and those young teams kind of took it to them. And I'm not saying this is the Winnipeg Jets at their best, but what I am saying with beyond a shadow of a doubt is this is the start of the wave of the likes of the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. These are teams on the rise. These are teams that are going to get better. And so when we talk about the Winnipeg Jets window, and a window that the Jets have really wholesale locked into, extending the team that you take a look, the Jets have just basically said last year what we had, let's just lock it down. Dylan Samberg, long-term. Neil Pionk got a long-term deal a while ago. Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor, about to be Adam Lowry. The Jets have chosen this path. And if you're thinking about a window that exists for the Winnipeg Jets, I think a lot of people were thinking that, the President's Trophy season was the beginning of something on this night and the last night. And the fact that you've got young teams on the rise and the fact that you've got the oldest team in the league not able to push the way they did years past, you got to start considering the idea that rather than last season's President's Trophy season being the beginning of something, that it may have been the peak of something. And where that goes from now going forward, youth's on its way up, and typically age is on its way down. That's the concerning thing for me as I'm cruising down the highway for the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive, folks. I'm going to bring Kenny in here right away, but first I just wanted to say this November, it's time to Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Finance the 2025 gorgeous Tacoma truck from 5.69% with up to a 1% loyalty rate reduction and a $1,750 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 1st. You know how quickly things went in October, folks. So visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, I've blathered on long enough. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, every once in a while, I'm late on walking the dogs, and I take them out at night. And there's this one house I pass all the time. I'm not a peeping Tom. That's not the kind of guy I am. But I've got this neighbor a couple streets over that sits in front of their computer in the dark in the bay window, and the computer lights him up like a movie set. Like he stands out like crazy, and it's just like it's this black window, everything black in there, and just this one guy lit up in front of the computer screen. I'm telling you, maybe you moved down a couple roads because that's what you look right now. Pure blackness behind you. You're lit up by the computer screen. I'm feeling like I'm peeping on Ken right now, folks. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why I brought it up. Maybe it's the discomfort speaking. I talk a lot when I get uncomfortable, but I will say this, regardless, you look great with the poppy, Ken. Important to get the poppy on, folks. Important if you can support, of course, Remembrance Day. I mean, I know it's starting to get on in years. My grandfather, my Mrs. Rennie's grandfather were both injured in the Second World War. I grew up knowing that kind of stuff. I feel like my kids don't really get it as much. I try and pass it along to them. I think the poppy is more important now than it's ever been before. So good to get it on. You're looking good. Not quite as good as we'd look if this was on a lapel of one of our gorgeous Vittorio Rossi suits, Ken. But we're going to get back to that, and we're going to get back to that right quick. And you should get back to it as quick as you can. Quickly head on down to Corden Avenue, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, honestly, one of the least impressive performances by the Winnipeg Jets that I've seen in the last two seasons. I know we're only 15 games into this one, but there was no doubt about it that the Anaheim Ducks were the better team on this night, and the vaunted Winnipeg Jets, who basically make life miserable for every team that they play, did not make an appearance in this game, maybe for tiny little swatches of the game. But this, in my mind, what I saw was an Anaheim Ducks team that ran the show here tonight. Am I off?
Yeah, quickly, just happy to say I was rocking my favorite Vittorio Rossi suit throughout the weekend here so far. For folks who don't know, I am in Toronto here. There was a great presentation of the Hockey Hall of Fame jacket and blazer and ring for the class that is being inducted Monday night in Toronto. Jennifer Botterill, our friend and fellow Winnipegger, is among that class. I got my baby or my navy blue Vittorio Rossi here with me, Sean. So I also wore it to the Leafs game tonight. Had a good chat with Nikolai Ehlers just to tease that. I'll be writing that story up in the next couple of days here. The mighty Hurricanes with a 5-4 victory over the Leafs. Ehlers very impactful in the game, including setting up the game winner. He's quite excited about the visit to Winnipeg in a couple Fridays from now. But On to today. Wow, you're right. It's an interesting time, Sean. We always talk about tension, right? Every season has its own piece of tension, and we weren't expecting the Jets to go 15-1 out of the gate, but I would say that the tension has arrived for the Winnipeg Jets a little bit earlier than maybe we anticipated. How long that tension lasts remains to be seen. But right now, the Jets do not resemble themselves. I think you explained it pretty well out of the top here. And again, the thing that's troubling, again, this is not sky is falling situation for the Winnipeg Jets at this very point, but at the same time, when a team prides itself on not losing 2 in a row and now they've lost 3 in a row and, didn't look like themselves in 2 of the 3 games, then you have some questions. I mean, that's reality. I mean, we're paid to analyze the game. So what we're analyzing in the last 2 games is the Jets are giving up far too many odd man rushes, and their defensive zone coverage is nowhere near the level that it was at last year. And again, we understand every year is different and all of those things. And it was going to take some time given the personnel that is out of the lineup. But right now, it's not like one line's not doing it, Sean. It's most of the lines are having trouble getting to that game. And to me, that's a bigger concern. I mean, we talked so much in the Rick Bowness, Scott Arniel era that, this is a team that prides itself on not having excuses. Well, they had the schedule benefit. The team they played a road game in Vegas the night before.
Yeah.
The Jets were the team that looked flat, and they looked like they were slow. And we knew that the Ducks were going to come in incredibly fast. We knew the Sharks play fast. Again, and the beauty of the NHL season, every year it happens. There are always, 2 or 3 teams that, provide some fool's gold in the first 15 or 20 games, and then the regression comes, and then those teams kind of sort themselves out. I think, as you mentioned, some of that is happening. But right now, the Ducks don't look like a team that is going to regress right now. And their one benefit, Sean, over San Jose, which we just finished seeing, is that they have a bona fide goaltender in Lucas Dostal. And not to say that Alex Nedeljkovic can't handle it or Yaroslav Askarov may not grow into one, but the Ducks have an established goaltender who has been a number 1. I mean, yes, he shared with Gibson the last couple of years, but he won the job last year. So they have a better chance of being sustainable because of that. And again, I'm not countering your argument, but Sean, what I would also say about the Ducks is that even though they are very young, they also have some veterans too, some older guys like Strider, like Alex Bourne.
Oh, they've got those guys and guys who are still performing, right? So
for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, the fact that the Jets are older, again, we'll see. I mean, over time, sometimes those veteran players can handle the grind of the season, even though the youthful exuberance of the early going, maybe they're able to go harder out of the gate, and maybe they run into some stumbles later on. But right now, the Jets, they've got some heavy duty cleaning up to do. And sorry, I didn't finish my thought. To me, Sean, for those who missed it or didn't hear the clips coming out of Anaheim yesterday, Scott Arniel held individual player meetings with his players, with his healthy players on Saturday while they held a sparsely attended optional skate. Scott laid it out when he spoke with Murata Tesh and Mitchell Clinton that he basically sat down with every single player, whether they were returnees or newcomers. He said he wanted to have those players know what the expectations of the coaching staff were for those players, and to reiterate and reinforce some of the, things that we've been talking about in terms of the structural things that have been ailing them. The fact that the Jets, it just didn't show many improvements in that area would be something that, could not have sat well with Scott Arniel or the coaching staff. Again, it's, yes, it's early and all those things, but when a team works hard for it to be woven into their very identity and is suddenly not playing to that style, that's something that needs to be sorted out. I mean, and that's something that the coaching staff will continue to look at and work towards. I mean, Luke Shen was very frank on the post-game show with CJOB today, saying, to a man outside of Connor Hellebuck, the Jets haven't had their A game for the majority of the year, and I'm not getting into an A game debate. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is these guys, Luke Shen was quick to say we need to be better, and we will be better. So I don't think that their belief is shaken, but I do think that they have some questions to answer about their either willingness or commitment to playing the style that we've said all along, Sean. It's a hard style to play. It's hard to play that style for 82 games and then 20 plus more in the playoffs if you want to get to where you want to get to. But right now, they're not playing that style consistently enough or for as many minutes are required to win consistently in the National Hockey League. And just like that, Sean, a quick 3-game losing skid has moved the Jets from having the best record in the Central Division in terms of points percentage to like kind of middling to almost being in a wild card position, right?
Well, they're in a wild card position right now, and they're now. Let's not.
It's also
overly
early
panic. They've put some stuff, but it's early. But beyond that, they've got games in hand on a lot of the teams behind them. Like I believe, so they've got 15 games. I think, Edmonton's below them in the standings, and they've played 17 games, right? So like the Jets have games to make up. If the Jets win their games in hand, they're actually in a really good spot. You were saying this, you're not going to be baited into an A game debate. Can I bait you into a fool's gold debate? And you had talked about some of the young teams, and maybe they're fool's gold. How about this? Are the early results that we saw from the Winnipeg Jets fool's gold, Ken?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but I would say, and Sean, we talked about it at the time. I mean, the Jets were carried in those early games when they got off to a 9-3 record. They were carried by 3 things: elite goaltending, incredible performance by the top line, and special teams. They won the special teams battle almost every night. And now, Sean, the Jets are 0 for 16 on the power play since Vladislav Namestnikov scored against the Chicago Blackhawks. And they gave up 2 more power play goals. So the penalty kill that was right near the top of the NHL, has had some regression or evening out or whatever way you want to call it. The top line scored a goal today, but yes, Mark Scheifele had a bad turnover on the second Beckett Seneca goal. I mean, no one's running away from that. It's a fact and it happened. But yeah, I mean, Jets top line scored a goal, but they were also on, I think, for 2 goals against at even strength. So that's not good enough. I mean, they're a line that has taken the other line, their opponents, to the cleaners on most nights. So they're going to need to be better. But again, the Jets are back to things we've been talking about. Where's the secondary scoring, right? I mean, it's tailed off. I mean, the Jets basically have scored 2 goals in his last 3 games. Jets have scored 2 goals in their last 3 games. That's not going to be good enough for most nights. I mean, that's just the way that it is. But Sean, to me, the offense is not nearly as big a concern as the defensive issues that I'm seeing. Don't you agree? I mean, to me, the more troubling part about the Jets is the way they're playing without the puck. I think that they're going to generate enough offense, even though it's been, not as good in the last 3 games. The games against the Kings have been a struggle for the most part in the last couple of years, or especially the road games. But to me, the bigger issue is what they're giving up. I mean, it's not good.
Okay. So yes, the short answer to your question is yes. Like the defensive issues are concerning because that's been this team's strength, right? We've talked about it. We said it over and over again on this podcast. The Jets structure is their strength, right? Them being the hardest team to score against the last couple of years, that's been their strength. That's what makes them great. And that's disappeared a little bit here, but I'll go back and I'll say this, to the original question of asking if the Jets have been fool's gold. Like I find myself going, Ken, from, like I said, what I saw in that game against the LA Kings was the Jets lost that game, but in order for them to lose that game, the LA Kings had to grind, right? They had to grind, they had to grind, they had to grind. And so that gave me belief that it's like, well, the thing is with the Winnipeg Jets is they're going to make you work for it. They're going to make you earn it. Right now, we've clearly seen a little bit of regression from them in the last couple of games. And someone pointed it out. This was worse than it was in San Jose. And the whole thing that you're talking about when it comes to, the coach calling them out and having individual meetings and this kind of response, we need to talk more about that. I'm going to jot it down. But that's something that we need to talk a little bit deeper into, that you get this kind of reaction from something like that. We'll talk about it later. You'll get a chance. But I do remember saying this earlier on, and at the beginning of this, I started out with show 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever. I started doing this is why the Winnipeg Jets are hard to beat, right? And a lot of times it's like, if things break down, there's great goaltending. And, when they don't get a lot of shots, even if you're out shooting them, well, they're really opportunistic with scoring. But one of the things that I'd said, and I talked about a little bit, and I had concerns at the time, was opportunistic scoring is not a game plan, okay? Because opportunistic scoring disappears. You saw it tonight. The Jets got an opportunistic goal. There was one tiny little moment where they had an opening. The puck gets over to Kyle Connor. He gets that one chance, it feels like, and boom, it's in the back of the net, right? There you go. The Winnipeg Jets got their opportunistic scoring here tonight. But that's it. One goal in the last number of games. As the other teams start to raise their game, and we're 15 games in now, right? Like as other teams start to raise their game, the ability to get those opportunistic goals, it doesn't happen as much, because you need things to go wrong to capitalize on to be an opportunistic scoring team. And that's the one thing I take a look at this. The Winnipeg Jets, I think in the past, can earned their offense off of the defense that they were getting, right? And so to your point, you're saying I'm a little more concerned about the defense, and this is probably why you should be, because this team works best when its offense is building off of its defense, right? But to a degree, when that offense isn't coming, at some point you got to wonder if, we need to find other ways to score. And that's what I think happened here tonight. The Jets thought we need to find other ways to score. And then we open it up a little bit. And when they tried to open it up, their speed, which is less than it was last year, Ken, got more exposed than we've seen all year, right? Against a team that's younger, faster. All of a sudden, the Winnipeg Jets looked really slow tonight because they opened things up, and then that sped the other team up and they couldn't keep up, right? But I'll say this, there has to be faith, right? There has to be faith that you do the right things that's going to result in this. I've been watching these last number of games, Ken, and the only element of the old Jets offense that I've seen that's been working is their shots from the point, right? Getting in those shooting lanes, tipping pucks. They look dangerous tonight. They scored Josh Morrissey scores a goal last game doing that. How often did the Jets score like that this year? But you cannot build your offense around shots from the point and tips and good balances and stuff like that. You just can't do it. You won't get enough. It has to be an element of what you do on top of other things. But for me, all the kind of things that they do to generate offense off their defense has dried up. And I feel like what happened here was, rather than the Jets go back and be like, okay, we really need to defend well, and then that's going to get us the puck and we're going to take it down ice and we're going to do our thing, they went in the other direction for the first time in a long time. But part of that, to me, Ken, has to do with the idea that the Jets of last year, even when they weren't scoring, were so dominant and rolling on you. It's easy to maintain belief if you're on top of the team, but they're behind the play a lot this year. And maybe there's an understanding there with the players that as much as we're behind the play, we are not going to score a lot off of defense if the other team has the puck half the time and we have it half the time. In order for that to work, we need the puck 2/3 of the time, like we had it last year. And so I guess what I'm saying here, you're probably right. You got to start with that defense, but can you get to that defense with the speed that you have? I asked it last show, can the Jets be what they were last year? And if you can't, and if there's a feeling with the players that you can't be that, then you can't expect the offense to flow the way it did last year, because you won't have the puck as much, because you're not as dominant and you're not tilting the ice. And that's when it starts to creep into the back of your head that, geez, we need to score some goals. We can't be as dominant as we were. We're going to need to find different ways to score those goals. And that's when you get loose. That's when you start trying different things. That's when you cheat offense. And basically, I'd said this, the Winnipeg Jets of last year were an outlier. They were an anomaly. This is what most NHL games looks like. It's this team pushes and this team pushes, and they go back and forth. Jets games haven't looked like that for a long time. It's hard to do that. And maybe, just maybe, they don't have the personnel to pull it off anymore. If that's the case, doubt starts to creep in, lack of belief starts to creep in, and I think that's what the Winnipeg Jets are fighting right now. To me, Ken, this isn't loose. This isn't a team that's just fallen off their game. This is a team that never found, by their own admission, their game in the first 10 games of the season, that I think at this stage is wondering, well, can we get to that game? And if we can't, what do we got to do to generate?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason why I don't think it's fool's gold is because of, two things are certain. Hellebuck is still elite. That's not going to change, even though he's been tested more or facing more high danger chances. The top line is still excellent. So, and that leaves special teams that needs to be, a little bit better than they have been lately. And again, I still think there's enough depth for them to score well enough. And to me, again, there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Now, some of that is due to the speed they're facing. I'll go with you there, but again, I just don't think that we can make a full assessment on whether they're going to be fast enough until, again, Cole Perfetti's back today. We'll get into that in a minute. Adam Lowry's back again. Until Dylan Sandberg's back, and Sean, you know this from many of the teams that you played on, you might have the most skilled forward group in the league, but if you're not getting the puck up the ice effectively or efficiently on the zone exits, you're not getting offense. So until Dylan Sandberg's back in, I'm not going to make the assessment that for surely they're not fast enough. I just don't think that we have enough evidence. Now, some of the evidence is building that they're not nearly as fast. We know they're not as fast as last year. But again, I want to see a little bit more in terms of, now again, the problem for the Jets, and, I saw it with the Carolina Hurricanes tonight as well. Some teams haven't played with their full lineup, and maybe they won't play with their full lineup because of the high volume of injuries. And again, this is not excuses or explanations. It's a
little bit of an excuse.
No,
I want to be looking at the Jets playing another team and saying, well, their one injury out of their lineup is keeping them from being who they would be. This is a little bit reaching.
I don't agree. I mean, it's fine. We don't have to agree on this. I mean, I want to see when Perfetti's up to speed. I want to see when good. Again, this is what I've talked about last game. And again, I'm not taking him off the hook, but until you see Neil Pionk at his best, which generally happens beside Dylan Sandberg, I don't think that we can say, well, the Jets aren't going to be able to play better defensively in terms of structure, or they won't be getting back to, defending better. That's just, I want to see it before I'm out here saying in game 15 that they can't do it. I mean, they have earned the benefit of the doubt on a number of fronts. So I'm willing to wait a little bit longer before I say the Jets are toast. I mean, I know you're not saying that. What I am saying is that let's see, let's give Perfetti a 5-game run, see what, we're talking about secondary scoring. Well, Cole needs to be a primary scorer. He and Jonathan Taves had one nice connection today, but in 5 games from now, what are those connections going to look like? Are you going to win your minutes? Are you going to be driving play? So right now they're not getting enough from any of their players.
Ken, because you allow me to hand out these awards, I wield a lot of power on this show. Let's just be honest about it. And the power I wield is to hand out the hot take. Now, I'm not going to give it to you, Ken. I wouldn't do that to you because
if you want.
Maybe you're making excuses, but I will do this on the theme of excuses coming out here. Alex K says, no excuses, but this is, what do you call this? An oxymoron? No excuses, but 8 hours on the tarmac could explain the bad game in San Jose. Alex, you're going to bring this up and try and pin the San Jose performance on this after they play the next game after a dressing down from their coach and get whooped like they did on this night tonight.
And stayed off the ice.
It's time to bring out the excuse machine in this manner. My goodness, that is no doubt the Flamin' Comfort hot take of the show here. I don't need to look any further. It's there. It's standing right in front of us. That's your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flamin' Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flamin' Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street, and you will find it is one of the most impressive showrooms here in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flamin' Comfort. They will take care of it for you. And you know what? While I'm at it, we were talking about the Jets and their scoring woes. They need to score. Like, you could score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game like it seems the Jets have been. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. And I'm going to see if I can find the other. Here we go. Ron Lott said about the head coach. I guess his talk didn't sink in. That's not a good sign. Ken, I wonder about this. What do you generally take away from a team that has been given kind of that public? Because I've always said this before. I've talked about it in the past about Scott Arniel. I love a coach that's confident and brings it into the public realm that, like, look, we talked about this, had these conversations with the players. We're addressing it. We're addressing it right now. I love it when they make that public because it's a way of accountability. It's saying, I trust that these guys are going to respond well to this, and I'm going to put it out there. Now, there's a lot of coaches. I remember the Paul Maurice days. I always felt like Paul Maurice tried to keep everything in-house, and I thought part of that was the avoiding of that public accountability in situations like that. And I think that harmed the Jets until the new regime came in and they kind of turned things around, turned the culture. I thought part of turning around that culture was not keeping things under wraps and hiding it in the dressing room. It was bringing it out into the public and saying, yeah, we're dealing with these things. Let's keep going. Scott Arniel doing that. I've always admired it. But what happens to a team when things have gone very public and it's like, guys, this is what I expect. Time to respond. Go out there and show me what you can do. And the team responds with maybe their worst effort of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly interesting, Sean, right? I mean, we spent a lot of time saying how, start of the season, not that the start of the season doesn't matter, but the 15-1 start didn't mean the Jets went and won 4 rounds. So, I mean, they've got to be building as the season goes on. The problem right now is that the amount of space that they need to build is getting wider rather than narrower, even though they're not even to the quarter point of the season yet. So, again, I don't have any concern in terms of the messaging not getting through. It's just like, I mean, again, the Oilers got smoked 9-1. Does that mean Chris Knobloch suddenly forgot how to coach, or that his message isn't getting through to the Oilers, who are, sleepwalking out of the gate in their first quarter of the year? I'm not willing to go that far. I don't think that's the case. And I don't think it's the case that the Jets are ignoring the message of their head coach. Right now, they're just having trouble with finding the commitment level required to raise their game. And right now they need to raise it more than we expected them to. Sean, we saw this with John Cooper last year. When the Jets went into Tampa, before the game was played at the morning skate, John Cooper said, one of the best parts about the Jets team that's off to this crazy start is that they don't beat themselves. Yeah. So right now they're beating themselves on a lot of nights. And when they're allowing, and I also don't think that that's completely accurate, that they're only beating themselves, they're leaving the door open, and a lot of these other teams are kicking it down. So it's not only about self-inflicted wounds. To me, the bigger issue for the Jets right now is that other teams like Anaheim and San Jose are imposing their will
on the Jets the way the Jets used to impose their will on other teams all of last year. So if that portion continues, then the Jets are going to have some real concerns.
It's good to see Bick Ronas. We haven't seen him for a while, and he says Arnie has lost the room. Pretty obvious now. Lack of response. That's clearly not what's happening here in this situation. But
this is pristine roofing wake up call.
Yeah, sure. Right, let's do it, Pristine. Why not? It's good to see you back. We're going to welcome you right back with an award. It's good to see you again, Bick. Here's the wake up call, brought to you by Pristine Roofing and Siding. Of course, that means time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake up call. You will be glad that you did. I would say this, Ken. I'm almost surprised that it's taken this long. Like, it's, I think maybe for a second people thought I was going to come on here and I was going to say, this is proof that they're tuning out the coach and all this kind of stuff. I was going to say this, like, the Jets have been so consistent for so long. Like, what are the stats? No one over the last 2 or 3 years has won more regulation games than the Winnipeg Jets. They are the NHL's model of consistency for the last 3 years. They are the team that just over and over again, when there was times for teams to sag and to let down and all those kind of things, the Jets almost never did. And I've wondered for years, how long can they keep that up? How long do you just not get tired? How long do you always find the response without letting that response sag a little bit, right? I think that's what we're seeing here. Like, it happened with the previous coach. It's happening with this coach now. Scott Arniel has always been very, very quick to give the whip to the horse when he feels like the horse is starting to lag. He does it right away. He doesn't let it fester. He gets on the team immediately. That's what it's been like for this team for the last 3 years. But you can only do that and get that immediate response so many times. Eventually, you get used to the whip. Hey, when my mom used to hit me with a wooden spoon over the backside when I was a younger kid, by the end of it, I'd go in for a couple. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I've survived this before. I can get by. It stops being as big as a deal. At some point, you have to find, and coaches talk about this all the time, you've got to find different ways to motivate players, right? And I'm not saying that Scott Arniel failed at this time to properly motivate his players, but he's trying to snap them back into focus. And the Jets over the last 3 years have, by and large, for the most part, snapped back into focus whenever they've been told to snap back into focus. And this is, to me, a clear example of a time they were told to snap back into focus and it went in the other direction. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next game, because if it happens again and you see a poor showing from the Jets in the next game, then you're starting to think, okay, what is this team's ability to get itself back on the rails when they've fallen off the rails? Something they've been so good at for years. And really, that's why they're the consistent team. That's why they're the President's Trophy winning team. Even if they did, like, let's say they go and they have a really bad game against Vancouver, and then they do it again against Seattle, and then they go back to Winnipeg and they have another bad one, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. They've fallen off the rails. They'll never get back on. But I think it's a bit of a clear indication that the Jets are going to be more like teams that we've seen in years past, like Colorado over the last couple of years, Dallas, who, Edmonton Oilers, who fall off the rails and lie in the ditch for vast swaths of the season before they go and try and get themselves back on track here. The Jets have not been one of those teams. They don't slack. They don't take time off. But where has it got them? Last year, it got them, like I said, a hockey god's bounce into the second round. It hasn't necessarily shown that it's paid off in the long term of what they've been trying to do. Their faith has stuck with it. But I would think this team is almost due this year to have a year where it falls off and then falls off the rails for a little bit, and then it comes back and it gets to its game, and then a little bit later it falls off again and is up and down because that is what 95% of the teams in the NHL basically are, the good teams from year to year. The teams that aren't, the Winnipeg Jets last year got to the second round. The Boston Bruins a few years before that, the greatest regular season ever, bounced in the first round. Being that team that never falls off and is constantly focused and on its path typically does not pay off in a Stanley Cup championship. So it's not the worst thing if this is happening. And I would think by this point, the Winnipeg Jets would be a little bit tired and would be a little bit, take a little bit longer, have a little more of a delayed response to getting back up to things. So I don't think it's the worst thing, Ken. To be honest, I've expected this. I expected it to happen a lot earlier than this. It doesn't mean it's not a problem, but I guess I'm just trying to say it doesn't mean it's the end of the world.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too that I just think that it's one quick thing we should mention, and again, we should not ignore the fact, and not that you are, but some fans in the chat room are like, the Anaheim Ducks are not some pushover like they used to be. I mean, they've won 7 in a row. They blew the door. They've scored 7 goals, I think, or 6 goals 5 or 6 times this year. In this 7-game winning streak, they've beaten the Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars, and the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Winnipeg Jets. So I think we need to give them some credit as well in terms of their ability to impose their will in the game. But so this is the other thing too. Like, last year when Scott had his eruption in Utah, the Jets went out and rattled off an 8-game winning streak. So I think that some people expect, if the coach gets mad, then they should have an 8-game winning streak. And I wouldn't even say that Arniel got mad. I mean, even in his post-game comments on Friday, he said it was a terrible game for the Winnipeg Jets. He didn't rip them, he didn't go on a big rant. I mean, and yesterday he was just being honest. He said he held team meetings with his players and, basically said that the expectations were laid out. So I do think that, it's disappointing for the coaching staff that they had that kind of response. But again, and I don't think that this is the Jets sleepwalking and saying, hey, wake me up in February. But I don't think that they're not playing crisply enough to get to the point where you feel you can just flip the switch and they'll be good to go.
All right. Question for you before we get to that question, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out.
Yeah, right on. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All right, I want to have another conversation, but I'm going to need my thinking cap for this one, Ken. And of course, my thinking cap isn't a thinking cap at all. It's a thinking headband. So let's turn this into a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Ken, we're going to have this conversation because on Kenny and Renny, we just don't cover the here and now. We cover the big issues, just like this big headband wraps around this big giant shoebox head. And just like Myers Drugs wraps around the entire city of Winnipeg because they deliver wherever you need them in the city of Winnipeg. So if you have any pharmacy, health food, or supplement needs, they're the people you go to because they'll come to you. Head on down to Myers or check them out online and or give them a call and tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you when you do. Okay, I'm fascinated by where things are going with the pursuit of Team Canada, because it started off at the beginning of the year. Mark Scheifele was starting to look like he was a shoo-in. Connor Bedard, I don't think plays that global kind of 360 game, but oh my goodness, like to think that you've got a 20-year-old player, first overall pick, who was a phenom, who's had a lot of international success at the younger stages, and to say that, we're not going to take, if this continued, the leading scorer in the NHL on the team. That's just, no other country would ever do that. There's not one team, I don't care who you are. You can talk about how deep the United States is, or there's no way he would not be playing on that team. Macklin Celebrini doing his thing. I wonder if the way Mark Scheifele is going right now, where he's gone dormant, is there potential that he's playing himself off the team when he goes through these dormant stretches like this? Because if there's anything that people have, this is a player that has been around a long time, 32 years old. Canada's had a long look at him over his career, and they've chosen not to take him. And he needs to kind of give them no reason, no excuse to get out of that. And I worry that this stretch of games that he's showing here, should it go on much longer, is Team Canada looks at that and says, well, if he's capable of that, if he's capable of going and lying dormant for that long, can we risk that? Can we, especially from a guy who's supposed to come on the team and be a scorer, and how we've talked, Ken, go on lines with really good players and be pressure carrier. Is there potential, the way things are shaking down, that Mark Scheifele could be playing himself off the Team Canada we all thought that he'd played himself onto?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far quite yet. I mean, it certainly warrants some discussion, or will, if it keeps up. I mean, he did have an assist today, so again, it's more about the defensive play for Mark. I mean, he's got 21 points, so he's showing that he can be productive. So the fact that Bedard is 25 and Mark now has 21, I mean, I don't personally think that Bedard has separated himself enough from Scheifele to say he deserves the spot over him. And again, Connor Bedard is an incredible offensive player, but he's not in any danger yet of being a Selke candidate either. So, and he's undersized still to a degree. Now, again, I love the way that he's playing, and I love the way that he's bounced back after a disappointing year last year. Sky's the limit for Bedard, but Nick Suzuki, Mark Scheifele, Robert Thomas, all of these guys are in the mix, and not all of them will get jobs. So when the margin is thin, in terms of margin for error being thin, or dips in your game, again, Mark will need to get things turned around quickly. But again, I don't think he's played himself off the team, and I know that's not what you're saying. He's leaving the door open to a degree. And again, not to change the direction, but I mean, we were just talking with Rod Brindamore after the game, and Ken Campbell of the Hockey News asked him about Seth Jarvis. I mean, different role for the player, but Seth Jarvis had another great game today. He's double digits in goals. So anyone who thought that maybe Jarvis might be leaving the door open for someone else, I don't see it. He's slamming the door shut on guys that are trying to take his spot. So, whether it's Travis Konechny's slow start or Sam Bennett, I mean, the other issue, Sean, is that, like you said, the body of work. So Sam Bennett's had a bad start to the year offensively. No one's forgotten that he scored, 14, 15 goals last year in the playoffs. So I'm not sure that he's played himself off the team either. And he's had, a way worse start than Mark Scheifele. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, this is the problem for Mark, is what happened last year. He was playing through an injury last year that just so happened to coincide with him rolling through Tampa and Florida. And again, we know it's not just one game, but when you're playing one of those games against the head coach of the team who saw you play one of your worst games, I can't help but think that impacted their decision, even though they're always going to say it's not one game. You need to have your good games again, for a consistent stretch of time. He basically can't afford many missteps. That's 100% accurate.
Well, I think that's exactly it. Like you talked about Sam Bennett. Like Sam Bennett doesn't need to do that. this year. Stab Bennett's already proved what he can do at that level. He's proved it in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not a question, right? It is a question of how Mark Scheifele would respond to getting on that team, because they haven't taken him yet. You don't know. And so I guess I would say this. I'm not saying that he's played his way off the team. That would be a ridiculous statement, to be quite honest, I think. But what I do think is, like, it's clear with Mark Scheifele that the leash is short on this. He doesn't have the time to kind of go dormant like he's done for a little bit of time, because right now what it's starting to look like is that Mark Scheifele had a hot start. Right. And the one thing I always say about, because I started looking around, I started looking at, the other teams that are, or the other players that are in the mix. Like you brought up Rob Thomas, who's like right there now, right? Like Rob Thomas doesn't have the benefit of having a Kyle Connor on his wing. And he doesn't have the benefit of having a Gabriel Velarde there as well. And yet he still finds himself producing points at a similar pace to Mark Scheifele. And if I'm being honest, I take a look at the playoffs last year, and head to head, I thought Robert Thomas more than held his own, if not won the head-to-head battle against Mark Scheifele last year. So that to me is like a tick in the box for a player like that. And I just think Mark Scheifele knows from what he's been through in the past that he has to be a no-doubter. And that's just how it goes for some people in life. Some people, are born on first base. Some people get a reputation. That reputation carries them, whatever. And some people just have to say, like you'd said, Ken, kick in the door and not allow anyone to say no. And right now, Mark Scheifele is not kicking in the door. Right now, Mark Scheifele is kind of sitting at the side of the highway and, eating a burger from McDonald's that he got while everyone else is trying to drive to a destination. And I guess my point is, like, it's got, like, if there's a wake-up call to be had right now for someone who wants to do that, it's got to be now for Mark Scheifele, not only for the Winnipeg Jets, and there's another thing, Ken. If you're really watching this team and you're reading about the Winnipeg Jets and you're saying the head coach came out and talked to everyone individually and said, this is what we need from you going forward, and that's the response, you want to be going to that guy who comes out, and even if the rest of the team didn't show up, you want to kind of take the guy on Team Canada that showed up and put the team on his back and went out like he did at the beginning of the year. But you want to see that guy who's like Mark Scheifele, had he no points, no goals in this game, whatever happened, if he'd gone out and been flying and grinding and, hitting and doing whatever and playing really good defense, and the Jets lost 4-1, if I'm Bill Armstrong, I take a look and I say, well, his team called, or his coach called him out and said, we need more out of you. And he came out and gave exactly that. That helps. That's what you want on Team Canada, is the guy that when you demand a response, that response comes, because in a short tournament, Ken, you don't have time to take people that it's a question mark whether or not they're going to show up at the time that you need them. Mark Scheifele has to show up now, and he has to show up going forward. There's no room for error with him. There's too many other players who are playing great. There's too many other young players who are vying for those spots, who are earning those spots. There's no time. He's got to get going. He's got to get back to it. He's got a comfy situation on his line with the players that he has. There's no excuses. Mark Scheifele has to produce, but more than that, he has to show up for every single game. He can't be absent from games. He definitely can't be absent from games stacked one after the other and maybe after the other. You have anything to say before we move on to the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game?
Yeah, and just quickly on that, because I think we got to give Mark a little bit more credit for, there's only been one best on best since 2016, and Mark literally was the next man up for our nation's face-off team. So I do think that this isn't like he's been passed over 8 times to go to the Olympics or to be on, Team Canada's in the last little while here. So I do think he's still very much in the mix, but yeah, I mean, he can't afford a lengthy slump. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Oh, I was going to defer to you, but I didn't see a ton. What I'd written down, and I was just
I literally was about to text you. Dylan DeMello basically stopped a backdoor tap in, but then like 12 seconds later, he was the closest guy to Bennett Seneke. So, or Beckett Seneke. So, it's the best one that I have, but I don't feel great handing it out. Cause DeMello was also kind of put in a bad position by the bad turnover.
Right.
Anyways, so that I hope you have something better, but that's the best
No,
that's
I'll
the best
go
that
with
I have
that.
so far.
And I'll say that like Beckett sent, I mean, of some of the young guys on that team, like Carlson looks phenomenal.
Amazing.
And like
10-game point streak, 25 points. Like
Beckett Seneke is everything that Sammy said that he was going to be, like
on
a
our show,
competitor, a grinder. Like the one thing that I thought about, Dylan DeMello is the closest guy to Beckett Seneke on that. Beckett Seneke is big. He's strong. He's rangy. You saw him throw that hit behind the net at the beginning of the game. Like the Jets went out and they threw a hit, and I thought that was an important hit. I think honestly, you could give him the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game for Anaheim in that moment, because not only is he scoring, but he's 19 and he goes and throws his body around, basically saying like, so he shows up for the speed for the track meet of the game. He shows up on the scoreboard, and then he shows up with the rough stuff to kind of say, hey, if you guys think you're going to run us out of our building, it's not happening. All of a sudden that team is big and young and fast, and he really is turning into everything Sam thought he should be. So I guess I don't overly fault DeMello, because
I wasn't faulting him either.
I know you're not, but sometimes we talk about like, if you don't have the stick, you don't have the man, and that's true. But I always thought Rick Bowness was really good at saying this. Well, the other guys are trying too. And sometimes you just have to hand it to the opposition that they're big and they're strong and they're trying and they're skilled. And that was just one that like, Dylan DeMello will not be the last guy victimized by Beckett Seneke in front of the net, tapping pucks in like that, because he's just so big and so hard to handle. Agreed. Regardless, I think that DeMello did a great job before that. He got scored on. I don't look at him and think he messed things up. You got beat by a really good young player who's only going to be beating more and more players. So, hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, that will bring us to our the keg, hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Man, there was something near the end of the second period.
Well, I'm going to go first, but then you got to give me something. This isn't going to be one of these ones where you say, you got to give me something else, but it's the play where Comrie is out of the net, and then he comes kind of diving back in with the glove save. I mean, that was, it's probably not, he wasn't saving the game or anything at that point, but I love the idea that on a night where the Jets as a whole seem to not have the prerequisite battle level, that Eric Comrie, the backup goaltender, had his battle level there and was fighting to get back into the game the way that he did and make that save.
Yeah, actually like Dostal's save on Nikita Chibrikov, and also too is important for Chibrikov because I quite frankly, I don't think he's been generating very much, Sean. And for me, that was one of the best scoring chances he's had this season. So I thought it was a really good save up top by Dostal on Chibrikov.
Good stuff. That's Ken's and my hashtag the keg saves of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Kevin Berg. Kevin Berg, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we wrap up another late night version of K&R?
Yeah, just for the folks who might have missed it off the top, if they were tuning in elsewhere or whatever else, or late to the party, just an awesome couple of days here, just to set the scene. I mean, on Saturday at the Hockey Hall of Fame, they gave the rings and the blazers and did a little brief Q&A, and then had one-on-ones with all of the inductees. And it's a great class of folks, including Winnipegger Jennifer Botterill, who become the first Manitoba female to be inducted, and the 13th and 14th women with Brianna Decker on Monday night. And Jen just handles herself with so much grace and class and everything else. And she was just a treat to deal with. She did the whole gamut of interviews. I spoke with her parents, Cal and Doreen, and had some great interviews during the week with Cassie Campbell Pascal, another great colleague and friend of ours. Spoke with Sammy Joe Small for a long time today, and it's great to hear all the stories about Jen, and she's so deserving. And for folks who haven't seen it, my article on her has gone up on freepress.com and will be in Monday's paper, and excited to be attending the event tomorrow as well. So stick taps to the entire Botterill family, and obviously to Jen. And again, just one other thing too, Sean, and you saw it. Ron McLean did just such a great job of surprising Jen, had her family out, and they didn't know it was coming. I spoke with all of them today, and Maya got a chance to talk, one of her daughters, and just kind of a cool moment. And Sean, we know this because we've been on the receiving end, in the earpiece. Ron just makes people feel so comfortable, and he cares so much about people, and that part is just something that in broadcasting, for those of us who've been lucky enough to work in broadcasting, is such a gift. Just like Jen has been a gift, the way she's grown the game, both on and off the ice, whether it's as an analyst, as a player, coaching her 3 daughters. It's just been impressive to see, and the fact that she cares so much about where she came from and the people that are in her life means so much to her. And it's just a cool moment to be here for it. And I think Monday is going to be just a spectacular kind of putting the ribbon or the bow on what has been a fabulous weekend for her and her family and friends.
Well and richly deserved for one of the best people in the game. People have heard it here before. They've seen her. We did a long form K&R with her on the playoffs. Jen, we see her all the time, treats us like $1 million. Ken, she's got every reason to treat you well. She doesn't need to treat me well, and still she does. That should tell you everything you need to know about her as a person, and the phenomenal hockey player she was, and the massive impact she had on the game of hockey and the country as a whole. Congratulations, Jen. We don't deserve you, and yet you make us feel like we do. Thank you for that, and thank you to all of you for tuning in. We very much appreciate it. We know 1:21 a.m. in the morning and you're here means a lot to us, as do all you who will be tuning in tomorrow morning after you've had your sleep. I will say to all you folks, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate the contributions made by our sponsors. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, Flame and Comfort, Myers Jugs, the Johnson Group, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's get together and do this again after the Winnipeg Jets take on the Vancouver Canucks. We'll talk to you all after that. Bye-bye.